everyone, welcome back. It's a yellow explosion again. So today I am going to do the mid-year book freakout tag. And you're probably thinking, it's September. And you would be right. However, I really love this tag. I love watching them and I love doing it, but the summer got away from me. Summer was trash. It's gonna be fall soon. In my heart, it's already fall. And you know what? This tag's happening in fall. So deal with it. So I'm very behind on my Goodreads goal for this year, but we're gonna ignore that. So question number 1 is the best book you've read so far in 2020. And for this, I think it has to be Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was so good. I read all of Elizabeth Acevedo's books this year, but this one just, I think it takes the cake. It is about these two girls who their father dies in a plane crash and they don't know that the other one exists until that happens. So they end up finding each other and connecting, and it's just really interesting because they live in different countries and just there's a lot of, discussion about family, and it was just, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I loved it. Best sequel you've read so far in 2020. My question is sequel the second book, or is sequel any book after the first one? If it's the second book specifically, I have read Lair of Dreams and The Dream Thieves, both of which were probably my least favorite of their series. So I didn't really love either of them. If it's any book after the first one, I'm going to go with Blue Lily Lily Blue, which is the third book in the Raven Cycle series. It was so good. I think my favorite book in that series. Question 3 is new release you haven't read yet but want to. Yeah, I really want to reread Twilight, and then once I'm done with those books, I want to read Midnight Sun. My soul needs it this year. I'll get to it eventually, probably not until Christmas break. Question number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I was really looking forward to Horrid and These Violent Delights. I cannot remember the plots of either of them right now, which is kind of good because I know at one point I was excited, but now, I'm super down to just go into them blind. So, yeah, but they sounded really, really good, and the covers are just gorgeous. My biggest disappointment this year, which I think most people enjoyed it, so I'm sorry, but it was Frankly in Love by David Yoon. I appreciated some aspects of the book, but I think I gave it a 2. It ended up being very, very predictable for me. And there was one character, there was a side character who had a weird character arc that was thrown in at the very end for no real reason, and that was just weird. But it just felt kind of like your average coming of age teen story with a teenage boy is the main character. I don't know. I did appreciate some aspects of it, but in general, the plot was just very predictable for me, and I was expecting more, frankly. Next is biggest surprise, and I feel like a lot of you won't be surprised because I keep talking about this book, but that is Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schuldt. Four Dead Queens had me so surprised because I was expecting this to be a 3-star, and I think I gave it a 4 or a 5.
Wow.
I didn't know it was a standalone, so that already gets points. But it was so good. I really want to reread it soon, actually. So this world has some kind of Divergent elements, the good elements from Divergent, and it's about this girl who kind of gets caught up in this huge plot to take down the 4 queens, and she has some kind of insider info into what might happen to them. And so she's trying to get to them. She's trying to get to, like, I don't remember what it's called, but, like, you know, the capital where they're at, to let them know the information she knows to hopefully protect them. And it's really interesting because the characters are kind of from different factions. I think there's 4, so there's one queen for each realm, and they're all very, like, distinct, and I just really love, you know, it has, like, the Giver kind of vibes, and I just really like that type of world where, you know, where you come from, you're a certain way, and so it's really interesting seeing people from the different places, like, interacting with each other. And I really love the perspective of the queens. Each queen kind of had her own perspective for a little bit, and it was good. I really, really liked it. So if you're at all interested, I would definitely recommend this because it was so much better than I thought it would be. Next is favorite new author, either a debut author or a new to you author. And this year, obviously, that has to go to Elizabeth Acevedo. All of those books were so good. They were all so good. So whenever the next book comes out, you know that I'm pre-ordering it. Next is newest fictional crush. And I don't really get fictional crushes, like, ever. But I guess the closest, maybe, would have to be Gansey.
Wow.
Richard Campbell Gansey III from The Raven Cycle. I also like Adam, but I think I like Adam's personality better. But Gansey just seems very attractive, and I appreciate that. Number 9, newest favorite character. I have 2. I really, really loved Star from The Hate You Give, and I really loved Theta from The Diviners. I have not yet finished the last Diviners book, so do not spoil that for me. But Theta, they were both really interesting characters, and obviously very different ways, but I really enjoyed both of them, and I really enjoyed the books that they were in. Number 10, a book that made you cry. I don't really cry at books, but probably the one that made me closest to crying would be Cracked Up to Be by Courtney Summers. This was a hard-hitting contemporary. It is a short book. It is like 215 pages, and it packs a punch. Our main character, Parker, goes through so much, and there's a lot of trigger warnings for this, so be aware before you go into it. Like, definitely look that up, but it was just, I mean, it's just a really good hard-hitting contemporary. That's really all there is to say about it, but just the way some things were described and her mental state was described, it was very, it had me emo. A book that made you happy. This one has to go to The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. It was just so fun to follow the main character along. And then by the end, when it ended on kind of a happy note, they found themselves, like, found what made them happy. That made me happy, and I was just so happy for them. So, yeah, for sure this one. This is about our main character ends up discovering drag and finally finds that as, like, this amazing outlet for them, and meets all these friends, and it was so good. 12, most beautiful book you've bought this year or received. I read it last year, but I got this year for my birthday, I think, because I had to have my own copy. House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. I think I did a whole reading vlog for this last year. One of my favorite books, like, of all time. It is a spooky, ocean-y retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and that fairy tale was my shit. So to have a spooky retelling of it was just amazing. It follows one of the sisters, Annalie, as she's trying to figure out what's going on because so many of her sisters keep dying and people keep saying that their family's, like, cursed and has the worst luck, but they live in, like, this big palace, like, gothic-y palace by the ocean. So the atmosphere is just so good, and there's some really spooky parts that gave me chills, some weird, like, ghost things. It was so good. Definitely the perfect fall read. So if you haven't read this, I would highly recommend it. But just, I mean, that cover is gorgeous. Last but not least, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? A lot of the ones I need to read by the end of the year, and by need I mean want, are rereads. I really want to reread Twilight, and then I want to get through some Cassandra Clare as well, rereading, and also some of the ones I haven't read already. But other than that, there's nothing that I'm like, I have to read this. I would really like to reread Little Women around Christmas time again this year, like I did last year, because I love that book so much. So a lot of the ones that I really want to get to are ones that are rereads, just because, you know, they make me happy, and that's what 2020 needs. You need to read what makes you happy in 2020, because you gotta do what you can. That's it. Let me know if you've read any of these. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!